Greg Ehrenberg from Odd Chopper here to break down another primetime NFL game. It is Monday Night Football, and it's another, well, not so great matchup. We got the Dallas Cowboys against the New York Giants. The Cowboys, no Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush starting for them at quarterback, and the Giants off to a surprising 2-0 start. So there are some implications here in the NFC East. It's a rivalry game, so do me a favor as you come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let me know in the comments section what you like about this game. Who do you want to win? The Giants, the Cowboys? What do you think is the better bet? Any prop bets you like today? Let me know below in the comments section. All the engagements are definitely appreciated. Also, a quick recap of last night. We actually did well on a primetime game. I've generally got my ass kicked on primetime games this year, if I'm being honest, but last night was a good one. So I had 3 bets that I had for the Sunday Night Football game. We did have the winner of the game. That was the Denver Broncos. Bet them as underdogs. They ended up winning outright. And then in terms of prop bets, had Jerry Jeudy under 4.5 receptions. That ended up winning. And then Brandon Ayuk over 3.5 receptions. That was the one bet that lost. And a little bit tilting as well because Ayuk had 3 catches in the first quarter, had the first touchdown reception of the game. And of all the bets I had after the first quarter, I'm thinking that one is the most likely to win. Already had 3 receptions. He was clearly a guy that Jimmy G was honing in on and then just shut out, held off the stat sheet the rest of the game, but still can't complain. 2-1, hit on the underdog in Sunday Night Football. And now it's time to break down the best bets for Monday Night Football coming up right here. So to start us out here, I'm going to be picking the winner of the game, and I'm going with the New York Giants. And just like last night, it's another really close game. 1-point spread. Yesterday was a 1.5-point spread. We've got the Giants as slight favorites at home. And to me, really what the biggest story of the game is and why I'm going to be siding with the Giants, it's the absence of Dak Prescott, who's going to be out for at least the next few weeks with that finger injury, or thumb injury, I should say. Not finger, or thumb, not technically a finger. All that aside, I don't really know what to make of Cooper Rush as a quarterback. And it's not to say that I feel great about Daniel Jones as a quarterback either. But Cooper Rush, 28 years old. We've only seen him make a few starts in the NFL. Frankly, he hasn't looked bad in those starts. But I also don't totally buy into him being an NFL caliber quarterback. The reason being is that if teams, or the Cowboys in particular, really thought that he was some NFL caliber starting quarterback, he wouldn't have had to wait until he was 28 years old to finally get on the field. So he's a guy who's toiled around as a backup. No other teams are willing to take a chance on him. Another point. All of that indicates to me that nobody's really evaluated this guy to be a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. And then when it comes to the Giants this year, sure, they've had an easy strength of schedule, but that's actually not going to change. One thing that I do think is pretty funny about next week is even if the Giants were to lose this game, they play the Bears next week. A lot of people are going to be thinking the Giants suck, the Bears suck. Well, at the very least, one of those teams is going to be at least 3-1 after next week, which is pretty crazy to think because Bears off to a 2-1 start, Giants 2-0 right now. But something else, too, is just looking at some of the data for this game. The Giants right now, 18th overall in DVOA, while the Cowboys are sitting at 15th. So two teams really close in terms of overall metrics, but also keep in mind some of the stats that the Cowboys accumulated, that was with Dak Prescott at quarterback. And with the Giants playing at home and all things else being equal, I'm going to have a slight lean towards the Giants as a 1-point favorite in Monday Night Football. But once again, I want to know who you guys are going to be picking to win. Let me know below because this is a pretty tight game. But officially, my pick for the game is the Giants. Diving into some of the props for Monday Night Football, the first one I'm looking at is over 3.5 receptions for Saquon Barkley. And what I really like about this is that it's plus 120 odds. And now make sure you guys are getting the best odds on this because the plus 120 odds don't exist everywhere. So for instance, we've got BetMGM, who actually sponsors the show. They have the line at plus 120, whereas DraftKings has it at plus 110. So make sure you aren't giving up any dollars here on that line because there's a
It's a rare day in any sports franchise when the management has that much foresight to be like, oh yeah, this player's on the decline. Let's get high assets. They usually just ride their players into the ground until it's too late.
Very true.
It's a classic professional sports move.
Are we up to date, by the way? Yes. Monday Night Football, which means we have one more game before week 3 comes to an end. One more opportunity for you out there to take advantage of what we have at No House Advantage. If that's our free projections on Stokastic, if that's our optimal lineup, or if it's just listening to Geoff for the next 30 minutes or so as we break down a couple of opportunities, money-making opportunities here at NHA. Yes, we have an opportunity for you to also match your first deposit, $25. Sign up. Our promo code is Stokastic. You can use that and then jump in the big one, the $15 one, the $5 one tonight. A lot of money out there, Geoff, including anybody going versus the house. But for the purposes of what we're going to do, a lot of money out there in these tournaments, even with some overlay too.
Look, I know our guy, Tyler, one of our producers, he's been taking advantage of it. And I'm telling you, if Tyler can win, you guys can win. I mean, like if he can do it, if he can do it, anybody can. But no, lots of overlay, just a fun contest. I love the setup there with the player props, putting them into like a DFS style lineup. So that's their pick'em contest. And then you can play versus the house and put together parlays as well. I mean, we got the projections up, we got the ultimate lineups up, and I think we got, an interesting kind of game from a prop perspective. I know, again, like it's projected to be a slower paced game, close point spread though. And whenever we get close point spreads, things can get a little crazy quick. I mean, we saw with that Cleveland-Pittsburgh game on Thursday, two bad offenses can put it together. And I'm not sure that these defenses are quite as good as people, maybe this point total is suggesting. So perhaps some opportunity to even go against the grain here and take some overs.
Yeah, interesting when you look at it from that standpoint, because overs can be on the ground, overs can be backs receiving, overs can come in different fashion, right? So when you just look at the game and then into, what we can do here, what is because it's only one game, so you already have a pretty good indication of where you want to go and what you want to target if it is an over play, and if it's receiving yards or if it's rushing yards. Where is a good place for you to start when you're building like a 7-6 point confidence type play? Yeah.
So let's talk about like what's projecting on the site of the strongest play. Cause those really, I like the Stokastic projections. It's the first thing you should be looking at. And here's one I like. Cooper Rush over an interception. It's simple, okay, but much like the Jimmy Garoppolo interception prop from last night that I liked. I mean, it's just, it's a mediocre quarterback to throw a pick. Let's just take it. Let's just do it. I mean, we're projecting him to basically throw a pick on Stokastic. And I think there's lots of scenarios where Cooper Rush has to lead the team down, for a field goal late. He's got to push. Maybe he's behind. And I mean, maybe it's just a simple like mistake thing. And I like it. I mean, I think that the Giants have shown, again, I don't want to romanticize the Giants because I think that's silly, but I think their defense has been good. They're moving around fast out there. They seem to have a lot of speed this year out in the secondary. I like that. I like this prop quite a bit. So that's one that's projecting as strong for us. Was getting all ready to hype up Michael Gallup under, but he's not even playing. So, I mean, I don't even think he's going to be in the player pool. So, but the Gallup news is interesting because, again, like that's going to have a trickle down effect. Like I think Dalton Schultz, who we already had projected as actually like a sneaky over, I think is projected probably now as a stronger over. So that's probably where I would suggest like the Gallup news affects the most. CeeDee Lamb was probably already going to get like 8 to 10 targets, but Schultz, Maybe even Tony Pollard. Those are the guys that I think would benefit without Gallup in. It's just a couple extra targets to go around. So that's kind of like what we're looking at off the top, like that interception prop on Cooper Rush, again, going over. And then I think that the Gallup news definitely like pushes me towards Dalton Schultz going over as well.
Yeah, I like that. Dalton Schultz, again, with the concern about any injury there and then seeing what's going on with Gallup, is there anything you can do with a guy like Noah Brown?
On Schultz. Schultz actually is still questionable. I completely forgot about that. So Gallup's been ruled out. Schultz still hasn't been confirmed. So like we do have like moving targets here, right? I mean, these could be obviously, but yeah, Noah Brown. I mean, absolutely. Like his projection for our site, I mean, is pretty neutral, but I think with guys like Schultz and Noah Brown, like how you want to play them is kind of how, you want to mix your lineup. So if you're playing the other side, like if you're thinking again, like Cooper Rush throwing a little bit more late in this game, the Giants are favored. It's basically pick them. But, if you're suggesting the Giants going to be up late here and we got a little extra Cooper Rush time, drop backs at the end of the game. I mean, I think like taking Noah Brown as an over now, it's just an even stronger move without Gallup because there's just multiple ways you can get there. You can get there with the late time, the later targets, but you can just get there in easy and just normal game flow. I mean, he's the number 2 receiver. There's no Gallup now. Schultz, again, as much as I do like to play, if he's active, he's still questionable. And, like that's injury news that we probably want to monitor. So Noah Brown in a lot of ways is maybe even a stronger target for an overplay there than Dalton Schultz. But yeah, the Gallup news, I think definitely bumps up most of the Dallas receivers. It is interesting. We do have, CeeDee Lamb projected as a pretty strong under. 67.5 receiving yards. I'm a little bit lukewarm about this.
Yeah.
I just, a guy who's getting that consistent targeting. I mean, again, like I think a lot of people will look at that line and look, our projections are saying it's a strong play to go under, but people look at that line bigger than the sports books, the yardage total. But I really don't mind. Again, like this is a game where I think that there's a lot of like kind of what I'd say highly variable outcomes where, we just get more throwing than we think. And yeah, I mean, one outcome is just, it's an ugly game. It's Cooper Rush versus Daniel Jones. But I think CeeDee Lamb could just with the targeting. I mean, it's a better than advertised chance. Let's put it that way to go over. So that's what I'm not really going to push too hard. I might even just take the other side of it and say that's a good opportunity to perhaps differentiate yourself in lineups there.
Yeah, and I think there's another opportunity with the same player that we should touch on. A reminder here, we have this offer for you at No House Advantage. We're going to match your first deposit up to $50. So $50, you put in $50, we match. That's right. And then all of a sudden that $100 you can go to work with immediately. As I mentioned, there are a couple of different tournaments you can jump in. Plenty of overlay here at No House Advantage as well. I want to stay with CeeDee Lamb because like you, I was a little surprised to see him so heavily favored to under props, especially with the threat earlier of Gallup, now we know out, and also Schultz being banged up. But the strongest play, Geoff, on the board, according to Alex's free projections up on Stokastic, is under 5.5 receptions for CeeDee Lamb. Now, I get it. 6 is tough to get to for anybody, but he's only projected for 4 tonight. So I guess I'm a little surprised that it's an underplay. I'm a lot surprised that there's that wide of a gap between 5.5 and 4.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing to talk about because if you are going to play the under on it, I think like that's fine. I mean, it is a big total and it's absolutely fine to do. But like, let's think about down the line. Okay, maybe that means Noah Brown gets a few more targets. He's a little bit more productive. But the other play is Zeke and his rushing yards. Like, I think that you should not – the one thing I don't think you should do is play the unders on both these guys. If Zeke isn't rushing the ball and he's not productive, you've got to think that, like, CeeDee Lamb is going to be getting a couple extra targets because the Cowboys are passing more. And conversely, if Zeke starts off well, then, yeah, that probably is going to lend itself to more of an under on CeeDee Lamb. So I think those two guys are very polar opposites. And it's nice because I think they're easy correlations. Zeke, we haven't seen involved in the pass game much. Obviously, he is losing some snaps to Tony Pollard, but we still haven't projected like right around his total. And I don't think that that's like an outlandish over to go over 63.5. That's where the Giants have been the most vulnerable. They gave up a ton of yards on the ground to Christian McCaffrey last week. So again, like these are two what you'd call evenly matched mediocre teams. There's no scenario that we can throw out here. We can't say that, New York's definitely going to be ahead. Dallas could easily be ahead. They could get ahead by a touchdown and Zeke could get 20 carries and he could go over this. And then I think that correlating that with the Lamb in that kind of game flow, the Lamb under, is absolutely fine. So I think those are two players on Dallas you really want to look at. Again, we're projecting as kind of unders on both, but I think that's a couple things factored in. The Gallup news is back. Just the low game total, right? So take that into account. Maybe one way to play it is just play unders on the board and play for like a 13-10 game, like the Denver game last night. So certainly all the unders hit except for like Cortland Sutton last night. So
right.
Seriously, all the unders hit.
It's amazing, right? And that's the thing here where I don't know, I wouldn't be shocked if we got that type of game tonight as well. But you mentioned as far as the defenses, I don't trust by any means like we did last night.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect point. This is not the San Francisco Denver defenses.
Correct.
It's the Giants and Dallas. That's why I'm kind of bullish on some more yardage than people think.
Yeah, and I think the rushing game here is something that we can talk about because you've got three guys clearly that we can target. Saquon and then the two for Dallas and Zeke and Tony Pollard. Again, 41.5. I'm surprised, Geoff, that 41.5 is an underplay at 37.6 for two reasons. One, and the second is going to factor into Elliott as well. But the first one is that Tony Pollard is one, and I don't mean like Chris Collinsworth you, which is whoever's in front of you is the best running back or the best at this in the NFL. Just happens to be on the broadcast that Kirk Cousins is the best at getting rid of the football in under 2 seconds with a guy in his, whatever it may be. But Tony Pollard has to be one of the best running backs to take advantage of limited touches in the NFL. And I don't think that's hyperbolic in saying that. So I'm a little surprised that his number is low. And then you factor in, which could also help Zeke here, the Giants defense gave up a lot to McCaffrey, 6.8 yards per carry as well. I'm surprised that both backs and Pollard and Zeke are unders here.
Yeah. I think the reason they're unders, again, we don't have them projected for super low totals. It's just that their totals are big. But to your point, there's lots of scenarios where the Cowboys get going on the ground and both of these guys kind of go over. I mean, maybe they don't smash overs, but I think there's a scenario where they both go over their rushing totals. So, you could pick and choose. If I was going over one rushing total, I would probably just lean Zeke because, again, you're playing for the Cowboys to be ahead and, Zeke probably gets a few more carries in that spot. Although Dallas has shown they're pretty committed to a split here, I think. So I really don't hate either of those. We do have them projected as unders, but again, I think that this game, it's not necessarily one where you have to rule out anything. And I think that if you're going to play the under on the Dallas Cowboys, it's just make sure you're correlating it on the other side. Play the Barkley over rushing yards and play the CeeDee Lamb over passing yards. So both those guys project fairly solid projections for both of them. It's just, they do have high totals on no-house advantage. So kind of asking you to take unders, but this is kind of why we like no-house advantage because these kind of higher totals, they also open up opportunities to just get lower owned props in your lineup. I don't think that many people are going to be on Zeke over rushing yards or even Pollard over rushing yards. I really don't. I think people will see the game last night that was played and think, oh, we got another stinker here, another 40 total. It's actually 39. Nothing's going to happen here. But we just talked about the Giants rush defense. I'm not sold that the Cowboys are going to be able to stop Saquon Barkley either.
No.
Another player who's receiving yards, it's basically, we haven't projected right for his totals. So, you could, again, you like the Zeke over rushing yards, pair with Saquon over receiving yards, man. I think this is a game where Saquon could get 8 or 9 targets. Who else is Daniel Jones throwing to today?
Not
Richie
many
James?
guys. Yeah. We've got Sterling Shepard as the only guy on here, right?
Yeah.
In case I'm missing anybody.
Richie James.
Richie James. I apologize. I apologize to the Richie James fan base out there.
It's just me. It's the Richie James fan. Yeah.
You're not only a member, you're also the president, right?
Yes.
Or you're whatever the hell that thing was. And people said that about me all the time because I have no hair. But yeah, I mean, you've got Richie James here. All right, let's just knock that out of the way here. Richie James, 42.5 receiving yards, 3.5 receptions. I mean, if I were to play anything here, it would be under 3.5 receptions in the sense of I just don't see him grabbing 4 balls. But then again, I don't know how to gauge targets at all for this team outside of Shepard's probably going to get a bunch.
Yeah. I think we can lock Shepard in for again, we have do we even have his projected targets? Yeah, we do somewhere. I'm just not. Here we go. We haven't projected for about 4 receptions, so probably in the realm of 6 targets.
Yeah.
But Richie James, you're right.
Sharp.
I mean,
yeah,
he's kind of been the slot go-to guy, and Tony, I'm pretty sure has been ruled out. But at the same time, I mean, look, the tight end Bellinger could pop up here. Saquon could pop up. There's no lock of Richie James getting more than 3 targets in this game, which he's going to need to get over that passing total or reception total. So kind of with you, if I'm going anything on James, it's probably the under. And again, one thing we've seen about the Giants too, it's probably the only thing we can say. I think they're going to run the ball regardless. They've been one of the lowest pass rate teams. It's clear that Saquon is the focal point of this offense. That's why I kind of like his over receiving total. I think he gets there regardless of game flow. I just think they're going to feed him so much tonight, rushing, receiving, etc. So yeah, under. I don't know if I'd go under Shepard because he is going to be the focal point, but yeah, under everyone else that we got available, it's really just Richie James. I'm for it for sure.
And that's the thing. It really is.
We really have 4 Giants to talk about. That's
seriously. And Richie James is
even get a holiday prop. Yeah.
Right. So, all right, Shepard, we hit Saquon. What's the prop that nobody's playing with Saquon? Receptions, right? If you wanted to play Barkley because you only have one of 4 options to play a Giant, and you wanted to move away from the field, I think a lot of people will play the rushing yards. Probably my guess will be more unders than not. You mentioned you can go over his rushing yards, so that's a good way. But I think just playing whatever side you're on, I imagine that Barkley not receiving yards because that's a low enough number that I think will draw people in. Mm-hmm. But I imagine receptions would be a pretty low played prop in general.
Yeah, agreed. 4.5, I think people look at that, they say it's just too much for a running back, right? And I don't think people get Saquon Barkley in their minds as a receiving running back, but this dude had 91 catches in his rookie year. Absolutely. He's pretty solid out of the backfield. And I really think as the season goes on and the Giants get in a little bit more competitive games and not playing the Panthers and the Titans, 2 of the lowest pass rate teams who just don't push action, I think you'll see Saquon's receptions go up. So yeah, I mean, again, when we're talking about this, we're not just going to talk about just the optimal plays. We can just read off the projections here. We got unders for a bunch of guys tonight, but you've got to think about this as you're putting lineups in. What is the field going to do? I think you're absolutely spot on. Everyone's looking at that reception prop and going, it's too high for a running back. There's multiple scenarios where the Giants are down and Saquon, gets a boatload of targets here. You pair that, like I said, you come back to the other side. How is that going to correlate? Probably an over on the rushing yards for the running backs for the Cowboys. That's probably the way I would play it. If you're going to take that hard line with Saquon's and going over on a low end prop, bring it back with something that correlates on the other side.
Is there let's look at Daniel Jones here. You mentioned Cooper Rush, the interception prop. Daniel Jones, we don't have much overall.
No,
we don't have rushing yards by any means. 220.5 is still an ask for this guy. So 220.5 in the air, 1.5 passing touchdowns. And I mean, what I love is going over the pick for Cooper Rush. Mm-hmm. It is Daniel Jones, right? At some point you can expect a turnover or 2. So maybe that's a place to start. I don't know.
I mean, and look, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at that. Actually, do we have an interception prop up for Daniel Jones?
It's a half.
It is up. Okay. So there you go. So, I think a lot of people are going to play that. I mean, absolutely. And for good reason. Like, it's not just the Daniel Jones factor. It's also the Dallas Cowboys defense. That's what they've done over the last like year and a half here with their playmakers. You know, I'm pretty sure they led the league in interceptions last year. So I think a lot of people will be on that. I mean, I don't know if I want to get too like, egregious here and say, think about Daniel Jones's overs. If I was going to go over, I'd probably take a chance with the over passing touchdowns rather than the yards, just because.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you're going over yards on Daniel Jones, I mean, I think Saquon could hit like 100 yards receiving or something. Like he'd probably have to. So that's, again, like if you're going to if you're going to chance Daniel Jones over on something, make sure you're pairing it with an over on someone else. But yeah, Daniel Jones is, I mean, there's a reason I really want to talk about him, just because
I noticed that you pushed him all the way to the back here, and then like I had to draw him out of you.
Such a nondescript Giants offense, man. Like it's just, I think that the unders are going to be such an obvious play tonight, but trying to make an argument that you should be going over on a team with like Golladay, Sterling Shepard, I don't know, man. It's a tough one. I would probably just, take a Daniel Jones under on like, or maybe just play the interception or take the under passing yards and just move on. Probably try and find other ways to do it. Yeah, I think I'd feel more comfortable going over Cooper Rush. I think there's more scenarios where Cooper Rush with his like, he's got a bevy of targets.
Yeah, he's
still got Lamb, Pollard. I think there's scenarios where Cooper Rush gets there, but I don't know, man. Daniel Jones going over the passing yardage. Whew, he's going to have a real good game.
220.5. That's the thing. Like
it's higher than the books.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. And it's not one. I mean, I'm interested in going under.
Yeah.
But right. But even then, this would be filling out the bottom, maybe a 2-point play at most, 1-point play at the end. But I think we just have better opportunities. And, to your point about Daniel Jones, even though we only have 4 Giants to choose from, we do have a bunch of guys in this game. And I feel like you don't have to. You don't have to play anything for Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Even in a shootout, Daniel Jones may not get there. I mean, like, it could just be Saquon running the ball. It could be like a Cooper Rush pick 6. So, it could just be he just gets good field position and then just doesn't rack up many yards. Like, I mean, I think there's lots of scenarios where Daniel Jones just kind of gets gifted some good opportunities. Maybe he gets there with passing touchdowns, like I said. But, the yardage thing, I mean, he's going to need Sterling Shepard to like, turn into, like Antonio Brown here tonight, potentially. So, look, I mean, we're almost out of time, but this game, I think a lot of people, especially after watching last night, are going to lean under. So you don't need us to come here and say like, obviously a lot of these are big totals and they're projecting for unders. I do think that it's a good chance, and we're talking no house advantage and their pick 'em contest, and it's GPP style, to really kind of load up on the overs. I mean, I really do think that we've got playmakers here in Saquon. They're going to be able to get some yardage for you. CeeDee Lamb, Pollard and Zeke. I think most people are going to go on heavy over unders, and just on the game theory factor alone, like if we get a bit of a back and forth shootout and there's some, it's just some crazy plays, and maybe Saquon goes for like 80-yard touchdown or CeeDee Lamb breaks one, this thing will break open fast, and you'll see a lot of these lower totals go over. So it's, again, our projections free on the site, as you'd expect. They're not projecting for this, and they shouldn't be. It'd be ridiculous if they were. But the whole field, you just got to think about everyone's mentality right now. They're looking at this game, Rush versus Jones, just saw a crappy Monday or Sunday nighter. Everyone's thinking the same thing. So just keep that in mind when you're going on no house advantage. If I had 10 lineups, I'd definitely be making a couple heavy over lineups just to get that differentiation fact. And if we do get that, like, 27-24 game, maybe one of the quarterbacks go for like 300, you'll be in such a good spot because a lot of people's lineups will be busting with those unders.
All right. You mentioned we're running out of time here. On the way out, because we talked about him just briefly in the beginning and just the impact of the expectation he could be out. Gallup, we know, but let's assume that Dalton Schultz is in.
Okay.
what can we do? 32.5 receiving yards, 3.5 receptions. I get it. It's Cooper Rush still, but this should be even easier than Lamb, who's going to have more focus on him.
Yeah.
If Schultz is playing, the understanding here, the expectations, he's healthy enough to be out there in the field, etc. I kind of like going over the receiving yard. 3.5 receptions, I get it, but I don't mind going over the receiving yards, as dangerous as it could be going over anybody's stuff that Cooper Rush is throwing to.
Yeah, no. And again, we touched on it at the front, but he is one of the players here with like a decent over projection. I mean, so I think that alone tells you that like this prop is, we have a lot of like, prop higher totals on the other guys, but Dalton Schultz prop isn't projecting for us as something that you need to be scared off of. Like it's the one, I would say, like one of the ones, maybe there's a couple others, but Schultz's receiving props almost projecting as like, too low. So
yep.
Yeah, we're really just waiting on injury news here. And again, like it's kind of nice. The questionable news, it'll probably scare people off him. I don't think that people will get too crazy about it, but to me, he's still the number 2 in this offense. I know Noah Brown's shown up, but we don't have Gallup to worry about. Schultz over the middle against the Giants. I think that's a good matchup too. Giants pretty good on the edge so far, but over the middle, I think Schultz will just get a decent enough attention to push you over. So yeah, I'm definitely down with that.
Awesome, brother. Anything else you want to get out? We've, I think, hit everybody on the board here.
I mean, it's just one of those games where like, I wish we had more to talk about on the Giants.
I know.
Side. I really do. Like, I wish Kadarius Toney was healthy and they're using him, but like, I just expect Saquon to get really heavy usage in this game. And I do think that like, he is going to have a big game one way or the other. So that's just my take on this game. How it's going to go, I don't know. I mean, I think we're going to find out a lot about, just how good the Giants defense is. Because if they can't shut down Cooper Rush, then, we can downgrade the Giants in our model going forward.
I think you're right. I think that's a great point, man. And look, would it shock me if all 3 backs went over their rushing yards? No, not at all by any means. No. You could still get some points on the board. All right, brother. Appreciate it. We'll be back later in the week. We do this Monday, Thursday, Friday, get you ready for each game, and then Friday for the weekend. So take advantage of No House Advantage. You can sign up, match your first deposit up to $50 here, and then just, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe on the way out. Thanks to Mike for producing. Geoff, appreciate it, brother.
Yep. See you guys soon.
And on that note, we'll see you guys soon.